Aloha. Aloha. And good morning. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Manchester, U.S. Army Reserve retired, a member of the Hawaii World War I Commemorative Task Force, and I'll be your Master of Ceremonies today. First, let's have a round of applause for the Royal Hawaiian Band. And Halal Kahale Iho Kahala for their wonderful performance this morning. I would like to call forward Kumu Blaine Kamalani Kia. He will give us some remarks and then provide a blessing. Kumu Blaine.
Aloha mai kako no ke yala. Aloha. It's a very beautiful day here on the island of Oahu in our city county of Honolulu, and welcome all of you to what was once called Mamala Bay, a very beautiful area for us to have this auspicious occasion to remember those of our fallen military and our fallen comrades. It's very important for me to be here this morning to give good blessing on this day, that we have another day to live, to be productive, to make a difference in our lives. One of the most important words I can share with you is the word aloha, and what it truly means to people like myself and our host culture of Hawaii. As a kumuhula, I've been teaching for 30 years, and like Auntie, Leimomi Maldonado, we carry a very important responsibility in representing our culture, the things we do and how we bridge our relationships with our military, our people of Hawaii, those who come here to make their living, to make Hawaii their home. But what makes us really unique is truly that word aloha. I don't know, many of you know the word. A lot of us live with that word in our heart and how we interact with each other. But for me, the word aloha is really a living spirit that I have to deal with every single day. Because as a human being, we come with two things. Things that are pono, that are good, and things that are heva, that are not so good, that each and every one of us has to deal with. War deals with the same thing. It's a constant battle we have to deal with, this thing called the human being. And those things that are evil, and those things that are good. And it's always important for us to remember that when you rise each day, that you be thankful that you have another day to actually live and to actually make a difference. I always tell my students, don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to take care of itself. But you ought to be worried about today and what difference you can make in your life today. So when you look in the mirror, be thankful each and every morning and to make that difference. So in the word aloha, there is a saying that we often use. It's called aloha akuno, aloha maino. So I want all of you to repeat after me. Say aloha akuno. Aloha akuno. And say aloha maino. Aloha maino. Simply, that love is given. And when love is given freely, doesn't cost you anything, that love will be returned to you. There's no better day for us than to share that kind of love today in the spirit of aloha, and to make sure that we remember our fallen. And God forbid that we ever have another war like that again. So today we need to remember those individuals. They are like our ancestors. They're part of our kupuna. They're part of our past. Myself as a kumu, kumu is defined as the trunk, the tree that's rooted in the dirt, in the earth. And it's my job to create these branches, and hopefully they produce leaves, and hopefully we become fruitful. And when we get old and we get elderly, soon we will die and wither away, but yet another branch will grow, another leaf, and another fruit. So we have a really important responsibility today, that not only do we remember our fallen, but you take it with you and you teach it to our next generation. Learn from the past, make good of it for today, and make sure you certainly share it with our generations. It's a different world we live in today. We all know that. You don't need to be told what goes on. But certainly we can give good prayer and give power and wisdom to what we know and the difference we can make. To all of our military who are here today, we thank you for your service and your continuing service as well. Because without you, I don't have the freedoms that I am given. It is a privilege. And I thank you for allowing me to be here today to give knowledge and wisdom to all of you in the way of our host culture of the people of Hawaii, and to be here historically in Mamala Bay. So with that, I'm just going to do a real simple prayer, because the prayer really demands that all of you reciprocate It's one thing that I can stand here and give blessing, but you can also give blessing and power, because we know that prayer is power. So when I ask you to stand, I'm going to ask you to just close your eyes and just give me 3 deep breaths. Breathe in through your nose, exhale through your mouth, and just be thankful for the breath you have today. I'm going to blow the conch. The conch is very symbolic in our culture. It's heralding that an auspicious occasion is occurring today. It is my job to make sure that we bring all spirituality in balance to the land, to the ocean, to the heavens, to the past, the present, the future. When you ask for something, hopefully you receive it. But when you receive it, you also have to accept responsibility. And so we all are here today for that purpose and for that reason. And as I give blessing, that you keep everything pono. What does pono mean? Everything that is good. So if you're sitting about us now and you have some negative energies, what we call heva, I want you to uokala. Take it off your shoulders now and let only what is good to be present for all of those men and women who have fallen before us, to give us the privilege that we have today. Sound good? Okay, kulu no oko. Everybody stand. Just close your eyes, paniko maka. Take a couple good deep breaths. And again, let's be thankful.
So in the Hawaiian way, and now they again a big aloha. Aloha! Aloha! Mahalo.
Thank you, Kumu Blaine. Mahalo. So all please rise for the posting of the colors. The singing of the national anthem and Hawaii Pono'i by the Emalani Serenaders. Color guard, post. Forward, march, up, up. Post colors.
Forward. March. Up. 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 Right.
Everyone, will you please be seated? Thank you very much. Particularly thank you to the Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps, color guards from Centennial High School. Well done. Thank you again to the Amalani Serenaders and to the Royal Hawaiian Band. I'd like to welcome our distinguished leaders, General Logan, Admiral and Mrs. Fuller, General Wyrick, General Okahara, General Varas Lam, and Captain Tanoya representing Admiral Atkins. We are especially pleased to have representatives from the consulates and armed forces of Australia, Canada, Germany, Great Britain, and Japan here with us today. Welcome. We are pleased to see so many representatives from the state of Hawaii and city of Honolulu institutions who helped to organize today's event. Finally, we welcome our veterans from many organizations who are here to remember those who served before our current generations of veterans living today. We'll speak more about this. The ceremony is recognized by the United States World War I Centennial Commission, and we have received a laudatory postcard from the director of this commission today, and has been acknowledged in proclamations you will hear shortly from both the Mayor of Honolulu and the Governor of Hawaii and the National World War I Centennial Commission as the beginning of Hawaii's efforts to remember and honor the service of Hawaii's citizens. Both those who served in the military and security forces and those who served in civilian capacities, totaling well over 10,000 citizens of the then territory of Hawaii. In April 2015, Governor Ige declared and certified the World War I Centennial Task Force and gave us a charter to move forward with this planning. It is composed completely of volunteers from the military, veterans and civic organizations, and professional historians, and others who want to donate their time to this commemoration and remembrance. The general strategy of the Hawaii World War I commemoration has been to reach out to potential commemorative partners, because we can't do anything by ourselves, to help plan and organize commemorative events to honor and remember Hawaii's World War I experiences, both military and civilian. Grassroots commemoration efforts by civic organizations, businesses, academia, military units, and veterans organizations will provide the activities over the next 2 years. The Hawaii World War I Centennial Task Force will work with these organizations by providing historical research and endorsing their efforts as part of Hawaii's official commemoration. We invite academia, professional industry, historians, civic, patriotic organizations, veterans organizations, military headquarters, and others to highlight stories of service to share with others throughout the centenary commemoration, lasting from today until the end of the commemoration period in June of 2019, which is the centennial of the signing of the Treaty of Versailles, officially ending World War I. Today we commence Hawaii's centennial commemoration of World War I by honoring Hawaii's first casualties in the war, an event that, among others, moved the United States of America from neutrality to a combatant in the ongoing war. We also honor those who were preparing for the coming of war, such as Hawaii's naval militia. We start commemorating to honor those who followed in the thousands, enlisting in military service, who served in the armies of our allies and served in various capacities on the home front, even prior to the United States entering the war. In your program, you will find many stories of how people in Hawaii served during World War I. We would like to draw your attention to the story of Hawaii's first casualties aboard the SS Aztec. To recognize and honor those men, I call forward Captain Ross Lee, United States Naval Reserve, a Hawaii-born graduate of the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. Please welcome Captain Ross Lee.
Good morning and aloha. Aloha. All right, that sounds pretty good for early morning here. Today marks the 100 years. Sorry, guys. Honoring the 6 merchant mariners from Hawaii. And not many of you guys know that we had 6 people from Hawaii who was helping the British at the time, supplying the British with the war. The SS Aztec SS Aztec at the time had 6 local boys from Hawaii who were heading to the Atlantic to help Britain against the Germans. On April 1st, these 6 young men lost their lives, and their names are John Davis, Charles Kanai, Elika Kahui, Chester Lee, and John R. McCumber, and Henry Rice. Not many people know about the Merchant Marines. It's an industry that's unknown, and in times of war, it is one of the most crucial logistics in the war fighting effort. It can change the tides of war if you attack a country's logistics. And not many of the Merchant Marine supplies, usually the ammo, food, and military equipment. So if you attack their logistical lines, you can actually change the tides of war. So the Germans were attacking the Merchant Marines because the United States was helping out the British. The sole mission of over 90% of all trade is done through merchant ships. They play a vital role during wartime, and they're all the unsung heroes. Today we honor the Merchant Marines who sacrificed their lives to help sustain this war effort. Without their sacrifice downrange, the warfighter wouldn't be able to fight. We like to honor them today and thank them and the people who support them. So there's this famous song that we have, is the Heave Ho, My Lads Heave Ho, which the Merchant Marines always sing. And I would like to lead it off and thank the Royal Hawaiian Band and the Daughters of Hawaii to start it off.
Captain Lee for those remarks, all the more poignant coming from a member of the United States Merchant Marines. Thank you also to the Royal Hawaiian Band and the Emelani Serenaders for a wonderful performance of the Merchant Marine hymn. For many of us, the first time hearing this. As I mentioned earlier, the United States have pursued a strategy of armed neutrality as the war raged on in Europe, which included a building up of military forces in preparation for war. We remember also the Hawaii Naval Militia, were a unique example of the great effort Hawaii undertook to be ready for war if it came. I believe Texas is the only state that still has a naval militia. The loss of the Aztec mariners was the result of unlimited submarine warfare that contributed significantly to President Woodrow Wilson's decision to ask for a declaration of war exactly 100 years ago today. Then, on April 6, 1917, just one day after the sinking of the Aztec, Congress gave that declaration of war. I'd like to share with you a few of President Wilson's remarks to Congress to relive that event. This is directly from his war message to Congress on 2 April 1917. It's an excerpt, it's a very long message. But it is very poignant, I think. You could tell that President Wilson was a scholar and was a man of peace, put into a very difficult situation, and he used profound words to describe that undertaking that showed an understanding of what we were going into as much as any man or woman could have of entering a war of that size in a position of leadership. As President Wilson explained, American ships have been sunk, American lives taken in ways which it has stirred us very deeply to learn of. But the ships and people of other neutral and friendly nations have been sunk and overwhelmed in the waters in the same way. There has been no discrimination. The challenge is to all mankind. Each nation must decide for itself how it will meet it. The choice we make for ourselves must be made with a moderation of counsel and a temperateness of judgment befitting our character and our motives as a nation. We must put excited feeling away. Our motive will not be revenge or the victorious assertion of the physical might of our nation, but only the vindication of right, of human right, of which we are only a single champion. With a profound sense of solemn and even tragic character of the step I am taking and of grave responsibilities which it involves, but in hesitating obedience to what I deem my constitutional duty, I advise Congress declare the recent course of the Imperial German government to be in fact nothing less than war against the government and people of the United States, that it formally accept the status of belligerent, which has thus been thrust upon it, and that it take immediate steps not only to put the country in a more thorough state of defense, but also to exert all its power and employ all its resources to bring the government of the German Empire to terms and the end of the war. The world must be safe for democracy. Its peace must be planted upon tested foundations of political liberty. We have no selfish ends to serve. We desire no conquest, no dominion. We seek no indemnities for ourselves, no material compensation for sacrifices we shall freely make. We are but one of the champions of the rights of mankind. We shall be satisfied when those rights have been made as secure as the faith and the freedom of nations can make them. President Wilson concluded his remarks by saying, there are, it may be, many months of fiery trial and sacrifice ahead of us. It is a fearful thing to lead this great peaceful nation to war, into the most terrible and disastrous of all wars, civilization itself seeming to be in the balance. But the right is more precious than peace, and we shall fight for the things which we have always carried nearest our hearts. For democracy, for the right of those who submit to authority to have a voice in their own governments, for the rights and liberties of small nations, for a universal dominion of right, by such a concert of free peoples as shall bring peace and safety to all nations, and make the world itself at last free. To such a task, we can dedicate our lives and our fortunes, everything that we are and everything that we have, with the pride of those who know that the day has come when America is privileged to spend her blood and her might for the principles that gave her birth and happiness, and the peace which she has treasured. God helping her, she can do no other. 4 days after President Wilson requested a declaration of war, Congress obliged, and on April 6, 1917, the United States entered the war on the side of the Allies, facing the Central Powers. Over the course of the next 2 years, Hawaii will honor and remember the stories of service and sacrifice during the First World War, initially known as the Great War, and the war to end all wars. Sadly, it was not. But today is the beginning of this noble effort to honor and remember. To set the tone for this commemoration, the Governor of Hawaii, the Honorable David Ige, and the Mayor of Honolulu, the Honorable Kirk Caldwell, have both issued proclamations which will be publicly read for the first time this morning. I'd like to call forth Colonel Retired Edwin Hawkins, presenting the Mayor's Proclamation. Colonel Retired Edwin Hawkins is the Executive Director of the Office of Economic Development for the City of Honolulu, a 1973 graduate of the Air Force Academy. Colonel Retired Hawkins served for 30 years in the United States Air Force in uniform and has continued to serve his nation. Will someone please, thank you, General. And has continued to serve his nation in both defense and government fields. Please welcome Colonel Retired Hawkins.
Before I start, I want to put another plug in for the Royal Hawaiian Band. Clark Bright, the bandmaster, and the members, 181 years and still going strong. That's a tradition. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and aloha. Aloha. It's an honor for me to represent Mayor Kirk Caldwell and the people of the city and county of Honolulu at this kickoff event for Hawaii World War I Centennial Memorial. We've heard a lot about the exploits of the Hawaiian mariners aboard the SS Aztec and events leading to the Great War, World War I. So, but let me just add a few of my thoughts. Now, these mariners were very young, as it always seems to be the case. The young volunteer and fight to defend our freedoms. But if you go back and look at the time that they served, they were raised in the years following annexation of their country by the United States. And yet they volunteered and served under this new flag and went halfway around the world and served and fought for a cause that they believed in. I wonder what they were thinking. I wonder how they felt. They probably thought about the land that they came from, the families they left behind, their friends, but they probably felt this extreme pride in what they were doing. Maybe not unlike another group of those from Hawaii who answered the call and served a generation later. And looking around the audience, we see some of those faces today. So, we honor these sailors and the 10,000 who served in World War I and over 100 who lost their lives. They served for a great cause. They gave us today the freedoms that we enjoy, and we're forever grateful to them. And with those thoughts, I'd like to read the Mayor's proclamation. Whereas, on April 1st, 1917, the German submarine U-46 torpedoed and sank the SS Aztec, an armed American civilian freighter off the northwest coast of France. And whereas, among the 28 sailors from the SS Aztec killed in the attack were 6 young Hawaii-born mariners. And whereas, President Woodrow Wilson asked Congress for a declaration of war on April 2nd. And whereas, the attack was memorialized at a public event on April 22nd, 1917, when Governor Lucius Pinkham, Mayor John Lane, military officials, territorial House and Senate members, choral singers, the Royal Hawaiian Band, and a crowd of thousands gathered at Iolani Palace to eulogize these first of many to die in World War I. And Queen Liliuokalani permitted, for the first time, an American flag to fly over her home, Washington Place, in honor of the deceased Hawaii-born mariners. And whereas over 10,000 men and women from Hawaii served in World War I, with an official death toll of 101, who are listed on the Roll of Honor plaque in Waikiki, plus the deceased SS Aztec mariners. And whereas Hawaii's World War I Centennial Task Force is planning commemorative events to help educate our community about Hawaiian events related to the Great War, and the sinking of the SS Aztec highlights Hawaii's historical role in World War I. Now, therefore, I, Kurt Caldwell, Mayor of the City and County of Honolulu, do hereby proclaim April 2nd through the 8th, 2017, to be World War I Centennial Commemoration Week. Thank you very much.
I would now like to call forward Mr. Tom Lee, Military Liaison to the Governor of the State of Hawaii. Tom is a 1993 Moanalua High School graduate who joined the Navy at graduation and served honorably until 1999. After the terrorist attacks on September 11th, 2001, Tom rejoined the military, this time in the Army. Cool. Tom served in Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan and deployed to Taji, Iraq, near Baghdad, Iraq, in 2007, where he was wounded in combat. Please welcome Mr. Tom Lee.
Good morning and aloha. Aloha. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Colonel Tulak for chairing the commemoration, the task force, putting this all together today. And not just today, but events, as stated, that'll be lasting over the next couple of years. So thank you, Colonel Tulak. Also to our General and Flag officers, Major General Logan, Admiral Fuller, and all of our officers on the front row, all of you in uniform serving today, thank you so much for your service now and through the past years. For our veterans in the community, as myself, thank you for being here today in commemorating the World War I Centennial celebration. Commemorating these young men of Hawaii, they laid the foundation that we stand on today. Through the generations of past conflicts, Hawaii has been a key contributor to the United States in those efforts, and I appreciate their sacrifices in allowing me to stand on the foundation they laid in order to serve during the conflicts of today. I'll read the proclamation moving forward. Proclamation in recognition of World War I Centennial Remembrance Day. Whereas on April 1, 1917, the steamer Aztec was torpedoed and sunk by a German submarine off Ushant Light. Oh, I can't pronounce this. Sorry. Quissant Island on the northwest coast of France, killing 28 young merchant mariners, of which 6 were Hawaiian. And whereas Queen Liliuokalani ordered the flying of the United States flag over Washington Place in honor of the 6 young men, Chester T. Lee, John Davis, Julian R. McComber, Henry Rice Eleka Kahoy, and Charles Kanai. And whereas America maintained a firm policy of neutrality until war became inevitable, as President Woodrow Wilson declared on April 2, 1917, in his address to Congress, it is a war against all nations. American ships have been sunk, American lives taken, and whereas the territory of Hawaii supported the President's declaration, taking steps to protect Honolulu Harbor and government property, increase Provost Guard and coast defense, and call upon the National Guard, and whereas the territory of Hawaii demonstrated loyalty and support with a movement of preparedness, including the development of the Hawaii National Guard, which was larger than that of any other state in 1916. And whereas the spirit of valor and patriotism in Hawaii was evident when over 68,000 men answered the call of service by registering in the draft in 1917, and nearly 10,000 men from the territory of Hawaii served in the war. And whereas a war relief committee in Hawaii, along with civic organizations and civilian men, women, and children, raised money and shipped clothing and comfort kits to help the fatherless, widows, wounded, and disabled in war-torn Europe. And whereas the Hawaii World War I Centennial Task Force was formed on August 29, 2015, to pay homage to the fallen Hawaiian merchant mariners, remember all veterans who served during the Great War, recognize local contributions to the war effort, and educate posterity. And therefore, I, David Y. Ige, Governor, and I, Shan S. Tsutsui, Lieutenant Governor of the State of Hawaii, do hereby proclaim April 2nd, 2017 as World War I Centennial Remembrance Day, and ask that the people of the Aloha State join in commemorating and honoring those who made the ultimate sacrifice in World War I, and to recognize the patriotic and humanitarian efforts of civilians in Hawaii. Done at the State Capitol in Executive Chambers, Honolulu, State of Hawaii, on the 20th day of March 2017.
I would now like to call forward Mr. Tom Lee, Military Liaison to the Governor of the State of Hawaii. Tom is a 1993 Moanalua High School graduate who joined the Navy at graduation and served honorably until 1999. After the terrorist attacks on September 11th, 2001, Tom rejoined the military, this time in the Army. Cool. Tom served in Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan and deployed to Taji, Iraq, near Baghdad, Iraq, in 2007, where he was wounded in combat. Please welcome Mr. Tom Lee.
Good morning and aloha. Aloha. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Colonel Tulak for chairing the commemoration, the task force, putting this all together today. And not just today, but events, as stated, that'll be lasting over the next couple of years. So thank you, Colonel Tulak. Also to our General and Flag Officers, Major General Logan, Admiral Kohler, and all of our officers on the front row, all of you in uniform serving today, thank you so much for your service now and through the past years. For our veterans in the community, as myself, thank you for being here today in commemorating the World War I Centennial celebration. Commemorating these young men of Hawaii, they laid the foundation that we stand on today. Through the generations of past conflicts, Hawaii has been a key contributor to the United States in those efforts, and I appreciate their sacrifices and allowing me to stand on the foundation they laid in order to serve during the conflicts of today. I'll read the proclamation. Moving forward. Proclamation in recognition of World War I Centennial Remembrance Day. Whereas on April 1, 1917, the steamer Aztec was torpedoed and sunk by a German submarine off Ushant Light. Oh, I can't pronounce this. I'm sorry. Quissant Island on the northwest coast of France, killing 28 young merchant mariners, of which 6 were Hawaiian. And whereas Queen Liliuokalani ordered the flying of the United States flag over Washington Place in honor of the 6 young men, Chester T. Lee, John Davis, Julian R. McComber, Henry Rice Eleka Kahoe, and Charles Kanai. And whereas America maintained a firm policy of neutrality until war became inevitable, as President Woodrow Wilson declared on April 2, 1917, in his address to Congress, it is a war against all nations. American ships have been sunk, American lives taken, and whereas the territory of Hawaii supported the President's declaration, taking steps to protect Honolulu Harbor and government property, increase Provost Guard and coast defense, and call upon the National Guard, and whereas the territory of Hawaii demonstrated loyalty and support with a movement of preparedness, including the development of the Hawaii National Guard, which was larger than that of any other state in 1916. And whereas the spirit of valor and patriotism in Hawaii was evident when over 68,000 men answered the call of service by registering in the draft in 1917, and nearly 10,000 men from the territory of Hawaii served in the war. And whereas a war relief committee in Hawaii, along with civic organizations and civilian men, women, and children, raised money and shipped clothing and comfort kits to help the fatherless, widows, wounded, and disabled in war-torn Europe. And whereas the Hawaii World War I Centennial Task Force was formed on August 29, 2015, to pay homage to the fallen Hawaiian merchant mariners, remember all veterans who served during the Great War, recognize local contributions to the war effort, and educate posterity. And therefore, I, David Y. Ige, Governor, and I, Shan S. Tsutsui, Lieutenant Governor of the State of Hawaii, do hereby proclaim April 2nd, 2017 as World War I Centennial Remembrance Day, and ask that the people of the Aloha State join in commemorating and honoring those who made the ultimate sacrifice in World War I, and to recognize the patriotic and humanitarian efforts of civilians in Hawaii. Done at the State Capitol in the Executive Chambers, Honolulu, State of Hawaii, on the 20th day of March, 2017.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I would now like to call up our keynote speaker, Major General Arthur Joe Logan, Adjutant General of the Hawaii National Guard. Major General Logan's biography is in your program. Major General Logan has over 39 years of military service, receiving his commission in 1984. Major General Logan has 33 years of experience as a commissioned officer. Since January 2015, he has served as the Adjutant General of the Hawaii Department of Defense. The Hawaii World War I Centennial Task Force meets in Major General Logan's headquarters, and we are pleased to welcome our boss for his address.
Aloha and good morning. Aloha. I don't know if I'm your boss, but I'll take it. Can I get another round of applause for the Royal Hawaiian Band? What a fantastic Kumu Blaine, thank you so much for this morning's chant and blessing. Fantastic arrangement of getting started for today. Thank you so much for your patronage to our veterans and all of us in Hawaii that are here for the event. I'd like to say komo mai to our representatives from the governor and mayor's office, the members of our council court, state legislators, elected officials. Admiral Fuller, thank you so much, and your wife for being here with us this morning. General Okahara, thank you so much. I know we have drill this weekend, so we are here for other purposes. We have to be in uniform, so thank you for being here. You could be in other places. Also, General Verisam, thank you so much for being here. And Doc Wyrick, thank you so much for your participation. To our sponsored organizations or volunteers, members of our military, family and friends, but mostly to our veterans, mahalo for your participation this morning. I want to begin my remarks by saying a big mahalo to the governor and the mayor and our state legislature for all their support for World War I Centennial events. I also want to recognize our World War I allies and former foes, who today are our allies, friends, and partners, and some are represented among our council court this morning. I'd like to say a big mahalo to the World War I Task Force, who've worked hard to make this ceremony possible. This inaugural event organized by the task force, there have already been several World War I events sponsored by grassroots organizations, and there are expected to be many more over the next year and a half, which will culminate in a grand commemoration on Veterans Day, November 11th in 2018. Over the next year and a half, I urge these grassroots organizations, along with our Hawaii-based military commands, to work with our task force and be included in our state commemorative plan. I suppose it's fitting that I, a soldier, should be speaking at this event. It's really for two reasons, though. First, not because I'm a World War I veteran. Well, if I was, I'd look pretty good for my age. But I'm the grandson of a World War I veteran, but more on that a little bit later. But more importantly, this war steeped in U.S. maritime history brought out the uniqueness of Hawaii, of which only a handful of states are capable, and that is having its own naval militia. New York and Texas are the only two states that have naval militias today. But 100 years ago, Hawaii's naval militia was part of the precursor to what is today the state of Hawaii's Department of Defense. At that time, the Adjutant General, Brigadier General Samuel Johnson, who was born in Russia and served in the Russian Imperial Navy, was appointed as the Adjutant General under Governor Pinkham. He didn't just command soldiers of the Hawaii Army National Guard, but he was also responsible for the training and readiness of Hawaii's naval militia, which was activated in 1915. For those of you unaware, in our state constitution, the governor is authorized to form a naval militia. We just have to ask PACOM for a ship. I believe it's something to do with the proximity of this large body of water that surrounds the state, which is why we're authorized a naval militia. A state like Oklahoma, I'm not sure, has a purpose for a naval militia. As you can read in the program, the naval militia, once mobilized for federal service, were used very similar to our Navy reservists today. The standing up of Hawaii's naval militia was one of Hawaii's way to begin to prepare for war following the outbreak of hostilities in Europe in 1914. Thousands of Hawaii's young men enthusiastically enlisted, as joining the Hawaii National Guard was seen as the quickest way to get to the fight if the United States should enter the war on the side of the United Kingdom of France. By the time the Hawaii Guard was federalized in June of 1918, nearly 6,000 soldiers filled its ranks. That mobilization remains the largest federalization of Hawaii Guard in its history. But according to all records, as earlier stated, some 10,000 men and women with Hawaii ties served in World War I. While our 28th President of the United States, Woodrow Wilson, is credited with the optimistic phrase, "a war to end all wars," when describing World War I, a phrase he used along with others to garner public support and to influence our Congress to declare war. The phrase was actually coined by H.G. Wells, an English writer, on his writings on the purposes of war. But by the time Congress declared war, the United States entered in April of 1917. The deplorable conditions under which soldiers on both sides fought and died were well documented. The first use of chemical weapons, the rain-soaked and rat-infested trenches, the murderous precision of machine guns killing men by the hundreds and thousands. Everyone in America had been able to read the reports in newspapers, and for the first time in history, the use of film newsreels were brought vivid images of the war back to the United States and across the world. Soldiers shipped out of Europe and other points of the globe by 1917 had a pretty good idea of the hardship they would face, and yet they still volunteered without hesitation. One of those men was my grandfather, Private Frank Logan. He enlisted in the regular Army 836 Aero Squadron at Fort Slocum, New York in December of 1917. He was just 21 when he served overseas. He came back from the war, he was honorably discharged, and shortly thereafter joined the New York City Police Department. My grandfather was typical for that time. Like so many who had served before, about a year or two, they went back home, went on to their civilian life, but they carried the torch of military service, and passed that torch down to the next generation. Frank Logan's son, Francis S. Logan, my father, was a career military officer. He served in World War II, in Korea, and in Vietnam. He in turn passed the torch to his three sons, and we have served in the Hawaii National Guard from the mid-1970s through today, all of us spending a tour in Afghanistan. But over 100 years ago, Hawaii was about as geographically isolated from the battlefields of Europe, Africa, and Asia. And one could get the impact of World War I would still shape Hawaii in profound ways. Let us never forget the death of the 6 Hawaii-born merchant marines, mariners above the SS Aztec, sunk by an enemy sub on the north of France on the 1st of April of 1917. Which would become an impetus for the United States to enter the war. Their sacrifices 100 years ago would set in motion events that have led us in a straight line to the present. It is with profound humility that all of us who wear the uniform today, knowing that we are a part of that humble line. May God bless the men and women who wear the uniform before us, those who wear it today, and may He bless those who wear it in the future. May He bless the state of Hawaii and this grateful nation. Mahalo for all your attending the inaugural ceremony this morning. Aloha.
Sir, thank you so much for your inspiring remarks and for officially launching Hawaii's World War I Centennial commemoration. I would like to call for the hula halal. We will be entertained for a bit.
The number they do for you is called the Royal Hawaiian Hotel. Decided to do this number because this hotel was taken over by the military during the wars as a rest and relaxation. So now that we're resting and relaxing, let's give it to the girls for Royal Hawaiian Hotel. Royal Hawaiian Hotel. Ahena nila ke hulaline, ahena ni maolina. Kamu ena bela beka moi kapua na he pakika he pahe mai kaine ahena nila ke hulaline, ahena ni maolina.
walked off with my notes. Didn't want to buy. Whenever I tried to pull stunts like that on April 2nd, my mother always told me, April Fool's is past, and you're the greatest fool at last. Something told me, secure the notes. Ladies and gentlemen, the World War I Task Force and I would like to thank you for gathering with us today to commemorate the history of this grave event and to memorialize the sons of Hawaii lost in the sinking of the SS Aztec. These events happened 100 years ago, and there are no known living veterans of World War I with us today. Perhaps only a handful of people alive today that walked in this world at that time, all children at that time. There are some here today who may be able to tell stories of family or ancestors in service of their departed loved ones who served their country in this war. Still, we feel it is vital to remember and pay respects for the struggle and the sacrifices of past veterans, also their families and other civilians on the home front who supported them, as so many of us who were veterans were supported when we were away. So that we might have the freedoms and the security that we too often take for granted today. For veterans, their families, and many civilians raised in the history of our nation's past struggles, there is a poignancy to such events, such as those that will unfold over the next 2 years. Sometimes we share a war story at events like this to illustrate something. I want to share with you, if you'll indulge me, in a peace story, a story of remembrance. I have a very close friend, he and his wife, who is also a very close friend of mine. My friend is second generation American, so is his wife, and they live in Los Angeles. My friend nor his wife have ever served in the armed forces, but every year on Veterans Day and Memorial Day, he goes with his wife and their young children, little Ashley, and ever-growing bigger Jimmy, who's this bundle of crazy energy. And he takes them to pay respects and lay flowers at veterans' graves and memorials near their home in Santa Monica. If you've been there, there's a lot of large veteran cemeteries dating from World War I, World War II, and they're continuing, unfortunately, to fill up. His father served as an enlisted soldier, an infantryman, both, in the Korean War as a member of the Army of the Republic of Korea. And his father instilled in my friend, growing up, a respect for those who gave their lives not only in his nation of Korea, but particularly in America's wars. My friend has told me he wants to make sure his kids never take for granted the rights and freedoms that have been paid for in blood by those long past and by veterans still with us today. He sends me pictures of this every year because I'm one of his veteran friends. And it just always chokes me up to watch my friend's kids laying flowers at graves of people that no one in their family knew, to thank them, to going to memorials from World War I, World War II, and more recent ones, and paying their respects there. And I think this is the purpose of events such as this. They provide us an opportunity to honor the living and the dead who have served our country, no matter how long ago. World War I has been called many things. The Great War, the war to end all wars, the war for democracy, and sometimes the forgotten war. It must not be so, not on our watch. This is why it's so important to maintain the memorials to those who served in the past, though they may long be gone. It is important that we honor and maintain those dedicated memorial sites, where we may be reminded and teach future generations of the sacrifice of the past and have a place to pay our respects. Over the next 2 years, we challenge all the organizations represented here today, military, veterans, civic organizations, and the like, to step in and help plan and execute grassroots commemoration events. I think all of us who've served in uniform know how hard it is to plan things. and then to implement those things gracefully and efficiently. Hawaii's World War I commemoration cannot be limited to just a few events. We need to honor individual stories of service too, as examples in our own time, our own generation, and the generations not growing up and not here to grow up. What it is to be an American, what it is to serve, lest we forget. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise as we retire the colors. Take a few minutes as the cadets reorganize themselves. We really want to thank the cadets for rushing forward to secure the colors from the hazards of weather. The sea breezes came in. Thank you once again to the cadets from Campbell High School. Mahalo. Let us all now thank the many organizations who made this event possible, who are listed in the back of your program. Of course, we give special thanks to the Royal Hawaiian Band, and to Gordon Biersch for hosting us today. Particularly, mahalo to Gordon Biersch for taking initiative to providing us with refreshments this morning. They went ahead and did that on their own, and all of us really appreciated that. Great examples of partners. We are seeking to keep up the momentum of Hawaii's World War I Centennial commemoration. Please, we encourage everyone to take up the challenge as individuals, as organizations, as groups, as units, as families, to lend a hand, to do your bit, to kukua, and to make the Centennial commemoration a meaningful and proper tribute. And I'm going to call forward Colonel Art Tulak, Colonel retired, excuse me, sir, who's going to give us some instructions for follow-on events.
Just a short administrative remark. For those who received the invitations to participate in the sailing out to the H-Buoy for the remembrance ceremony to be conducted for the merchant mariners who perished on the Aztec, you will proceed after we conclude through the gate out here that leads to this asphalt fire road. And there you will see immediately to my front, your rear, the catamaran Wind Warrior, which many of you are planning to board. If it looks a bit sketchy for you, when you think you want a secure way to get on and off, then I invite you to head down to the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Ahi, where you'll be able to board more safely, but you'll have a very nice view on the Wind Warrior. We also have two pilot boats here, the yellow boats. You can hold only 5 personnel. Some of you have already signed the waivers. To get on these commercial boats, you will have to have signed a waiver, and we'll check your name off to make sure that you're legally covered. If you were on the invitation list and you would like to go on to the U.S. Coast Guard Cutter Ahi, no waiver is required. Again, that is for the people who have received an invitation to participate in the sailing and in the reception that follows. If you believe that is you and you did not RSVP, then please see me afterward. Lieutenant Colonel Manchester, would you please close the ceremony?
It's nice to hear me called Lieutenant Colonel Manchester once in a while now that I've retired. I've been called many worse things. I want to thank all of you once again for coming here. Blaine, band, so many amazing entertainment today. We hope this starts to set the bar for the other events in the year, and that people will keep raising that bar. Thank you once again. All of you made this possible. Mahalo nui loa.